This is the Main Street project. We're just going to run a quick walk through and try to show people what this project entails. Right now, we're at the very beginning. This is where the state highway layout ends on Route 30, and the town layout begins. So, at this point, your Sears Road's on your left. That'll be north. On our right side is Deerfoot Road. That's going to be south. So on the south side, we're adding sidewalks from this point through the rest of the project and maintaining the sidewalks that already exist. There is, at this point, the road's very narrow. It's actually only 27 feet wide, pavement edge to pavement edge, right there on the other side of Sears. And so we start expanding. Right there, it does start widening out. Then you get to the hydrant and those bollards for the gas station. And at that location, we widen out on that north side approximately 4 feet. We're putting drainage in here. As you can see, we need it. And then there's sidewalk starting at this edge of pavement, which right now is covered in snow. But right at the edge of the pavement, we're putting in a granite curb and then putting a sidewalk beside that. We're a little bit past Sears Road now. We've walked east somewhat. At this location, you see there's two chestnut trees on the right. Those two trees end up having to come down in order for the sidewalk to go in, and the utility poles have to be moved off the sidewalk, and there would be a conflict with the wires. The sidewalk goes in directly at this edge of pavement. They dig it out, put in granite curb, and build the sidewalk here. So there's grading easements throughout the project where we have to go back and try to grade out the rise of the edge of the road for residents who live on the edge. Everyone lives on the edge of the road. On the other side of the road, here we have about a 4-foot increase in this one section. And those boxes, as part of those gas boxes, are actually going to be moved further down the right-of-way to the bend in that stone wall. Any trees with the state contracts that we take down, they replace for 2 for 1. So with these 2 trees coming out, we'll have 4 trees to put in. They don't have to go back in the same spot. They don't have to go back in the same yard or the same type. Right here now we're standing at Deerfoot Road. At this point, again, the northern side of the road still is about a 4-foot increase. The edge of pavement continues to be the curb with the sidewalk on the right-hand side. Drainage system that's coming in here, we're basically on the north side of the road, the whole length where there's no sidewalk, we are putting in a sloped granite curbing to direct water. So the water will be directed, and we're starting a drainage system at this location. And if you do look up next to that stone wall where we're going to be putting the sidewalk, in order to comply with ADA, the telephone poles have to move because they can't be in the middle of our sidewalks. So when we move those, that's why you can't see any trees right here that are coming down. But as you get further up, we do end up with some conflicts. Here we're standing at Parkerville Road. Right now we're looking back to the west, back at Deerfoot. This stone wall, which is part of the big Garfield stone residence, that stone wall doesn't move, but the sidewalk does come right up next to it. Our drainage system actually is through a taking right here between the old stone culvert, or the old stone river that we have. You can see it, and then the property line here where the stone wall is. The sidewalk ends up being 3 feet in the road. So if you understand what I'm saying, the curb is actually in here, and then sidewalk, because the road needs to align with what's up there. So on the other side, there is a 7-foot increase in width basically at that driveway. So I apologize because my truck's in the way. So as part of that, by expanding the road, those 2 trees on either side of that mailbox that says 61 Main Street, those do end up coming down. The rest of the way, heading east as you look, you kind of can see that there's where the hydrant is, there's a grass strip technically, and then a narrow sidewalk. What we're doing here is where that grass strip starts, so on the left side of the as you're looking at it just in front of the hydrant or the left of the hydrant, we'll put the curb there, and then the sidewalk goes off from there to get a full 5-foot width. On the north side, in that area, we're back down to a 4-foot increase of the road width. The full-on road width changes in this area are, or for the whole project, it ends up being 1,500 square yards of increase in the road width. And that includes the intersection and the widening down here and some widening at the common. Other than that, there's a few places where we actually narrow the road. So this stays fairly consistent. There's some places where the road just narrows up, and so we just keep it consistent at 2 11-foot lanes, 2 4-foot shoulders, and then on the north side we still have the sloped granite curb, and on the south side we have the straight granite with the sidewalk behind it. One of the reasons that this section needs some drainage work is this drainage pipe right now. A lot of the catch basins up on Main Street in front of Faye School end up coming out here, and if you look at the washout, well, there is a little bit of an asphalt swale, but it washes out and it heads down into the neighbor directly behind the camera. Part of our drainage system is to get rid of that. The edge of pavement over here, this is considered the travel way, because obviously the edge of the pavement in this location is the swale. So the travel way is where everybody drives. So if you look at just about a foot off of the white fog line, that's where the slope granite curbing will go. And then on the other direction, on the south side of the property, or the right side of your camera, about 1 foot out from that existing curb, we put in a granite curb, and we have the sidewalks. We have sidewalks behind that. This section right here is actually the road gets a little narrower on that side and wider on this side. In this area right here, there's really no change to the width of the road. There's a little bit, about a foot on the northern side of the road, in order to create a shoulder. But on the south side, the sidewalk pretty much stays where it is, and actually we're pretty much out of the drainage system that goes into Faye. Okay, so now we're in front of Faye School. Bargain Box is right there on your left, and then you've got St. Mark's Church. At this section that you're looking at, you can see the crosswalk. At that crosswalk, there's currently no landing area on the other side. What ends up happening right there is we start a sidewalk just about where that woman is crossing, and we carry it all the way to the corner with Common Street. Then it goes up Common Street, so it basically goes around St. Mark's property. Then it goes across the front of the town hall and up onto Pilgrim Church's front yard, and then at that point you can cross to get onto the next section of Common Street. So that's a large length of sidewalk that we're adding. On the south side, the curbing actually gets pulled in about a foot closer into the road. I mean, you can see the alignment's a little off right there, but so we'll bring that in, get that squared away at that one section where it's a little off. Brings it in about a foot, and then when you get further up to the next section of Faith School's yard, so it's just beyond that second driveway that you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. When you get to that point, the sidewalk actually, because the road widens so much there, we actually bring the sidewalk, the current front of sidewalk becomes the new back of sidewalk, if that makes sense to anybody. So the sidewalk basically just moves over about 5 feet. That stone that says Town of Southborough Incorporated, 1727, that actually, historical would like to move that onto the common, because that intersection right now, it's each way on both sides of the stone, so that creates a lot of traffic conflicts. So we're actually bringing that out just as a two lane in, one out, and so there ends up being a lot more lawn at St. Mark's Church. The stone trough, which is just to your right, that stays, but the stone wall right here at the common does move. It moves 2 feet back towards the town hall, the way you're looking at it. That stone trough stays. Ultimately, that stone will move. And this area, we have a few things to talk about as far as what issues we have with the stone wall. For this sidewalk on this side and to get the parking in, unfortunately, this really beautiful straight and healthy oak is designated as coming down, and then that little cedar tree beyond it. Again, if there's a way we can save that, if people can, in the next section, I'd love to be able to find a way to do something to keep that tree alive, whether we have some sort of a bump out right around it or whatever we might be able to find, because it's actually a great specimen. But hopefully people will have some ideas between the 25 and 75% and bring them forward for us. Here at the common, as you're still looking east, if you pan to Doc Stone's house over on the right, the red house, you'll see that there's people parked actually on the sidewalks right now. And that's how people pull off of the road here to utilize the two businesses on this little stretch. you can't get past that to walk, and this has been one issue that had come up and back and forth with the town. There were votes by the selectmen to have no parking. There were votes by the planning board to have parking all the way through this. And what ultimately happened was when the selectmen voted not to have any parking, the public safety chiefs had a concern, because if people still need to use this and park right there, it was going to cause an issue with them being able to get by, because people won't be able to mount the curb because it's going to be a granite curb. What ends up happening at the common, the wall moves back 2 feet. So the face of the wall basically moves to not quite the rear of the wall. In that process, you can see a tree right now, and we can walk up to that tree and look at that. But there's two trees within this wall that actually do end up having to come down. Again, they get replaced in, not in kind, but 2 to 1, any kind we would like. Then they consider this to be an obstruction, the stone wall, and usually they don't allow pavement to go right up to a wall or to an obstruction. What we have a problem with here is that it does go right up, and there's nothing to stop you ahead of time. So for safety purposes, there's supposed to be a 2-foot barrier, not 2 foot tall, but 2 foot wide barrier. So the plans call for a granite curb that's the face of the curb being 2 feet from the wall, from the face of the wall. So basically the granite curb ends up at the face of the wall where the wall currently is. Then there's 1.5 feet, because the granite curb is 6 inches wide, 1.5 feet of material, which would be grass or stone or concrete or asphalt, and then the stone wall. What comprises that little piece we can discuss in the 25 to 75% as part of landscaping. Also, we discuss what kind of trees we want to replace, whether we want them in the common, on the edges of the common, somewhere else in town, along the corridor. By moving this wall, we've also created some extra common, because we were taking away from what's considered the common. So now we're on the north side of the common. A new sidewalk's being added on the St. Mark's Church and the Town Hall side, going to come across the front of Pilgrim Church. This common gets expanded, so a little bit past the brick sidewalk, it will come out and it'll go and it'll envelop, I guess, this little traffic island, and then come back around and meet back to the common. Common Street becomes one way. Okay. Common Street becomes one way. People will park. It'll come up the hill at us. People will be able to park next to the cemetery where you see cars parked now. Travel lane will be on the south side. And again, the area right here where people currently were heading down the hill, that will become a grassed area as part of the common. All right, we're at the common again. That's a picture of the tree furthest east on the common that has to come down as part of the moving of the wall. This fire hydrant does move as part of the project. This stone wall gets replaced. We actually were using the same stones Trying to keep it historical looking though, instead of the concrete that you can see coming out. We're trying to dry lay it with concrete in the back, so it looks dry laid, but it's actually not. It's because it is a retaining wall. Again, we're going to have the way in this one section, instead of having two 11-foot lanes and two 4-foot shoulders, on this north side we'll have, at the face of the wall, like I said before, you have a granite curb, then you have 1.5 feet of some sort of material, and then we'll have, so 2 feet behind this current face will be the new face of the wall. There'll be a 4-foot shoulder, an 11-foot lane, then we have a 13-foot lane and a 7-foot shoulder, which is a parking shoulder, or it's parking spaces, it's not a shoulder, and then a 5-foot sidewalk. And it does fit. There are takings on the south side from Faith School, and the two businesses do end up having to do some takings. Their takings are a little over 2 feet. But what that ends up giving us is a place to park, a place for bicyclists, because complete streets are important to keep bicyclists having a place so that when people open the doors they don't hit the bikes, and a place for pedestrians to walk. All right, we're on the east side of the common looking east. At this tree right here, to make common one way, we're actually changing the intersection of the common street and Main Street. It's about 7 feet east of this tree, so this tree stays put. We end up putting in the curbing, and if you look out, you can see there's a catch basin with a granite back piece to it. That granite back piece from there, it basically we're going to bring curbing in to add grass to the front of the library. It follows the curve of the road, and basically at the tip of this, where that telephone pole is at the tip of this, then it heads back over to the library. And so the intersection is actually in this grassy area, and the asphalt actually becomes a grassy area. The existing asphalt becomes a grassy area as part of the front of the library now. The proposal shows a little walkway through here, through this piece of the common, and meets up with the library on the other side in that big grassy area. So this is where we were standing. We were looking out. This is the new edge of pavement. This is currently grass, and what's happening is here we put in curb. This becomes the road, so this grass goes away, but we start back here and we bring this out, and this is new grass being put in, new curb with grass and trees and this walkway, bringing us up to the Veterans Memorial. What we're looking at now, we're kind of looking at the library. That large pine tree stays under this plan. You'll see where that traffic signal is. About the new curb is about 1 foot behind that existing traffic signal, the yellow one that's just standalone. That becomes the back. So the front of the curb is about 1 foot behind that. So that curves around. The basin that we had been looking at earlier actually is, at that point, currently the road is 33 feet wide, and we are increasing it to 41 feet at that point. So that's because we have a left turn only lane. So it'll be an exclusive left turn from each direction. So it's exclusive. There's an exclusive pedestrian section, which a lot of times in our town generally are pedestrian. It's you walk the direction your traffic is going with you. So if they're making a left or right, you have to be careful. Now we're looking at the intersection. We're still looking east. That utility pole that's pretty much direct in front right now, that pole is right now on the edge of the existing curb, so 5 feet back. So basically where that historic monument is going to be the new face of curb. And I know there's actually no physical curb there now, it's all flattened out, but If there was, it would be at the utility pole. So this stone wall gets replaced in kind, similar to the other stone wall at the Common. We actually aren't removing any stone walls in this project. Anything that we have to do, we're just replacing or repairing if need be. So this road right here, the road widens at the way we're going by 5 feet, and basically it's so you can make that right-hand turn. Again, exclusive left coming to go where we're standing now. There'll be an exclusive left so you can get up to heading north on 85, and about 1 foot behind that existing traffic light over there is where that corner moves to. Most of the main movement is on the other side of Route 85 at this point. These trees next to us on our right, they do stay because the wall doesn't move until a little bit after the tree, and it just to make a more comfortable curb. Right now we're looking from the intersection on the east side of the intersection, looking down Parkerville Road. Right now there's a row of trees on the left side of the screen. Those trees end up coming down under the current plan. With some of our meetings we had people had asked to have a sidewalk put in to get down to Woodward School. So as part of the process of putting that in and widening the road, those trees ended up in the sidewalk. In order to fit a left-hand turn lane here, this road actually basically comes back to the wall, with the sidewalk being right at the wall. Let's see, what else do I have? On the other side of the road, so on the west side of Parkerville, so the right side of your screen, there is actually a little sidewalk that squeezes in next to the stone wall, and then to the picket fence, and then you can kind of see it better. So that sidewalk gets improved to actually meet the 5-foot standard for ADA, and there does remain a grass strip because of the grade issues we have right there. And at that picket fence is where the road stops being widened. So when you get to that fence, the road goes back to its regular, the regular width that it's currently at. So at this spot right here, where this magnolia tree is, this tree is actually set to remove and reset. That trunk is actually on the back side of the sidewalk. So the way this curve comes now is the sidewalk, the 5-foot sidewalk comes right to that trunk, and then the road continues down, and pretty much the new edge of road or front of the sidewalk ends up at the stone wall. This stone wall, replaced in kind, same idea as all the other stone walls, where even though we're moving it using the same stones, it's going to look dry face from the inside, but the underneath the sidewalk will be a concrete part that is actually keeping the wall together. If you look to the north, so to the north of the intersection, you're looking up at St. Mark's now, the row of pin oaks, and that stone wall currently that you can see, it's a little bit buried at this point. That stone wall stays, and but the road actually, right now you can see the Verizon trucks parked on it, but the road widens there, and the sidewalk, there is no sidewalk on that section, so we'll have a curb and then a 2-foot gap to the stone wall like we have at the Common, but where the truck is will actually be paved. And on the library side of that, the alignment's a little off on it, so they're close down to the intersection. There's not a lot of change, but as you move north up 85, you'll see that if you look at the plans, that the curb actually widens the road right there. So the curb moves about 2 feet or so into the library parking lot, and then it moves up to 4 feet. So and we already looked at how that intersection changes. This corner right here, again with St. Mark's Corner, The sidewalk right now comes to that traffic pole right there, no turn on red, hospital head. That pole currently is basically becomes the front edge of the granite right there. So we'll have granite go around that corner, and then it comes down to this hydrant has to move back, and most of the movement is actually on the main roadway, not at the corner. So we'll have to go to the other side of the road and look. All right, so now we're at St. Mark's, the corner of St. Mark's property at the intersection. Obviously, this drainage issue that we have, we are repairing that as part of this project. So right where all that water swirling around the bottom of the traffic light, that becomes the new curb. Basically comes around this very last piece of this very last like stone of the stone wall actually ends up being cut off, and we curve around, and as you go looking east on Main Street. So now as we look east on Main Street, the back side of the sidewalk right now becomes the curb, and then we put a 5-foot sidewalk behind that. So this sidewalk and the grass area with these 3 cherry trees become part of the straight lane, and where the cars currently are parked is the left-hand turn lane. This turning lane, basically once you get to the the exit for the emergency services buildings, once you get to that point, the road comes back into, so it tapers to this width by the time you get here. It's back to regular width once you get to that driveway. So this is one of the cherry trees that we are losing. It is typical condition for these because they are right on the road. They're not a good street tree. So in all, right now it's scheduled to lose 7. All of them. I think there's 11. However, once we get past this widening, so there's 3 in the widening, once we get past that, there's a good chance if people really want to work and try to keep them, we can try to do something to incorporate them into the layout, because the road doesn't change once we get east of this widening. All right, so from this section, we're just in what I call the residential section of the project. There's no widening, nothing really changes here as far as with the road. There's the road lanes are more than 11 feet right now where the fog line is. So we'll have 11-foot lane. The fog line will be out further from the curb, but that existing curb, which is on the north side, the left, you can see where there's curb, but on the south side, it's all flattened out from people parking on it, and it was bituminous, so a lot of it probably just broke off. But when they had, so basically if you can distinguish between the edge of the road and the sidewalk, that will be where the curbing goes. Sidewalk will be on top of the existing sidewalk on the south side of the road, so on your right. On the north side of the road, right now there's a grass strip with those trees growing in it. Again, the trees aren't necessarily healthy. They're not really growing the correct way they should be growing. They should be growing out instead of kind of up in a V. The plan right now shows taking all those out, moving the sidewalk to the front, and putting landscaping and trees behind where the current sidewalk exists. Again, that can be worked on. I know people do have some issues with having that much asphalt all in a row, or even if it's concrete or whatever the sidewalk ends up becoming. The problem you have is that it's a very consistent color. So whether there's some kind of treatment we can do to have a little space where it's not grass but a foot of something else that will like bricks, that will change the colors, that would be an idea. Or perhaps there's we just have grass behind it, or we put ornamentals, but people have to take care of it, because unfortunately it won't be something that the DPW can maintain a garden running down the length of Main Street. this is the last piece. We're at downtown. The project actually ends really just before that Jeep that you can see, the green one. We had to cut off before we got to Morrow's Market. Morrow's Market being so close to the road is a problem with the sidewalk. We can't get the ADA width we need. It's not even it's not really even workable. So this section of the road, rather than try to get too many waivers, which we didn't think we would be able to get, we cut off here, and that portion of the project is planned to be done with town money. So basically that'll bring us to the railroad tracks and then at the other side of the railroad tracks.